Hello, I'm Ollie and this is Criminally, where I talk about crime, pulp, horror, that kind of thing. Today I want to talk about the influence booktubers had on my reading life. I'm doing the Under the Influence BookTube tag. So this is a tag that was created a few years ago by a book Olive, and MJ at Reading This Life has just resurrected it and tagged me in it today. And I needed a tag video to do for today, so I thought I would do it straight away. So there are 10 questions, and as the name of the tag would suggest, they're all about the way that BookTube has influenced you as a reader and also as a creator. So quite an interesting set of questions, I have to say. So let me dive into them. So the first question is, what's a fantastic book you read off the recommendation of another booktuber? So I think for this one, I'm going to go with the Factory series by Derek Raymond, which were recommended to me. And I can't remember if there was actually a video where they were recommended or they were just recommended in the comments. But they were recommended by both Duncan McCurdy, whose channel is great, and Juan at Plagued by Visions, whose channel is also great, as well as some of my subscribers as well who don't have channels. So a number of different people recommended these books. And I absolutely love them. And if you've watched my top 10 crime books that I read in 2022, you will know that the Factory series is very prominently reflected in that list. So yeah, an absolutely brilliant series of really dark, gritty, disturbing crime novels, which I think I would just never have come across were it not for BookTube. And then the second part of this question is, oppositely, what's a book you were talked out of reading because of a booktuber's review? So not necessarily a booktuber's review, but the Brothers Karamazov, which I started reading in December as part of my challenge to read books that have been recommended by Michael K. Vaughan. So I got asked to join a Voxer group because there were some people who were already reading it. So people like Sandy at Miss Reads a Lot, Anne Novella and Fraser Simons were all already reading it. And they asked me to join their Voxer group. And I said in that group I was struggling with it a bit. And I'd got, a reasonable way through it, like 30% through it or something like that. And all of them said, it doesn't really get any better, basically. Or it does get better, but like right at the end, and it may not really be worth the effort. And that helped me to come to terms with the fact that I wasn't going to finish the book. So not necessarily a video that prompted me not to read a book. Because I think the vast majority of videos on BookTube, it seems to me, are quite positive. I think people are much more inclined to talk about books they've enjoyed than books they've really not enjoyed. Although you do get some negative reviews, but most BookTube reviews I think are positive. So question number 2 then, has BookTube opened your mind to or changed your mind about any genres? So yes, definitely for this one. So and that genre is romance, and perhaps more specifically category romance, which is like a subset of romance, which is more the kind of Harlequin style, Mills and Boon style, like mass-produced kind of romance, a very commercial kind of romantic fiction. I've started reading romance this year, having not really read it before. I dabbled a little bit, but not really. And I've read a few things this year and really enjoyed them. And that's largely down to the influence of 2 channels. So Sarah at The Bookish Knitter and Crystal at Crystal's Bookish Life have both kind of opened my eyes a bit more to the variety of romance that's out there, and have introduced me to particular titles as well. So I really appreciate that. I always like finding new kinds of books to enjoy, and I've definitely found that this year in romantic fiction. Question 3 then, how much time did you spend on YouTube before BookTube, and how much time do you spend on it now? So I definitely spend more time on YouTube now. I used to tease my son about the amount of time he was spending watching YouTube. I certainly don't do that anymore. Prior to having the channel, I did watch one channel in particular, which is like a watch review channel. So I'm into watches as well as books. So I used to watch this guy's watch reviews and just really enjoyed his style, but didn't really watch much YouTube apart from that, other than kind of the obvious things like movie trailers that I think lots of people turn to YouTube for. But since starting the channel and getting into BookTube, I clearly now watch a lot of BookTube videos and really, really enjoy them. There are a lot of BookTube creators whose videos I just, even when they're talking about books I don't particularly want to read, I just enjoy watching them and hearing them talk about books. Okay, question 4. How many books did you read before BookTube, and how many do you read now? So this is... So I've read a lot of books this year, and this is the first year where I've had a channel for the whole year. I think I started my channel in September of 2021. So this is the first full year I've been on BookTube, and as things stand, then it's not quite the end of the year yet, but I've read 293 books so far this year, and that's more than I've ever read in any of the previous years. I had a quick look through Goodreads where you can see how many books you've read each year. So it's 293 this year, 184 last year, 156 in 2020, 206 in 2019. So I was already reading a lot, but BookTube I think has encouraged me to read a bit more, and partly that's because you get swept up in the whole community, and that shared love of reading I think has encouraged me to read more. But also because, partly because things like the 100 book challenge, which I was doing at the start of this year and now doing again, encouraged me to read, because I needed to read books in order to be able to acquire new books. But also just that, that shared love of reading, I think makes you want to read more. Just talking about books and watching other people talk about books makes you want to read more. And also, obviously, there's a certain requirement for me to read stuff for the channel. So there's some books that I read, not only because I want to feature them on the channel. I feature books on the channel that I wanted to read anyway, but it's probably influenced my reading in some ways, and there is a question about that later. And also, since having the channel, I was receiving like advanced review copies from authors and publishers before, because of like blogging I did, but I'm getting even more now. So that again is another source of books to read, which I think has probably pushed up my totals a bit as well. Question 5 then, has BookTube affected your book buying habits? And if so, are you pleased or displeased by this? So yes, it definitely has. I've definitely bought more books since being on BookTube, and that's why I did the 100 book challenge last year, and why I'm doing it again this year. I think there's something about being exposed to lots of channels talking about books that sound fascinating that makes you, or certainly makes me, more inclined to buy books. And I've done some really big book hauls this year as well, where I've bought like job lots of books from eBay. So for Garb August I did that, for example. So I bought far too many books this year, and I'm trying to address that. So it definitely has affected my buying habits, and not necessarily in a positive way. I'm not sure. Well, in fact, I am completely sure I didn't need to buy all of the books I've bought since starting BookTube. Question 6: has a review by a booktuber ever retroactively made you reconsider your stance on a book? So I think it probably has quite a few times actually. I'm thinking one example. So Andrew from It Came From the Page did a review or talked about in a wrap-up video of his a little while ago the book All the White Spaces by Ali Wilkes, and that's made me think about picking that book up again. So that was a book I started and DNF'd, and I think that happens quite a lot, particularly for maybe books I read a long time ago. If I see people talking about them and I can see the reasons for their opinion about the book from my memory of it, that might make me not necessarily change my opinion on the book, but want to reconsider the book, maybe want to reread it. So I think kind of yes is the answer to that one. Question 7, are there any videos you've been inspired to make after seeing another booktuber's videos? I'm not sure there are. So there are styles of video that you do on BookTube, aren't there? And I've certainly learnt from watching other people's videos about, what sort of videos work, what sort of videos I enjoy watching. So, book hauls, top tens would be a good example of that. So yes, to an extent, but I'm not sure, apart from tag videos, I'm not sure there's specific videos where somebody doing a video has made me want to emulate that video. And then the second part of this question is, have you ever felt inspired by another booktuber's style? So definitely. So I learned a lot in my early days on BookTube from watching other people's content. And if you look at my earlier videos, they're very different. I've got quite a set style to my videos now, in terms of, I always say the same thing at the beginning, I always say the same thing at the end. And depending on the type of video it is, so like a tag video or a review video or a top 10 video, I have, within those types of videos, a fairly consistent style as well. And that's a style that I've basically, to an extent, I've stolen parts of my style from other booktubers who I thought were doing a good job. And I don't think there's anything wrong in doing that. So if I think there are two channels in particular that definitely influenced me in the early days, and those are Michael K. Vaughan and Slime and Slashers. So I think the influence of Michael on the channel has been about having confidence to talk about books that don't get talked about a lot. So Michael talks about a lot of books that are quite not rare but not popular books anymore. And I think watching him gave me confidence to do that, but also just Michael's work ethic, I suppose, for want of a better word, in terms of trying to put up a video every day, which is something I've done, and it's something I can't see myself changing. So there have been times when originally I was doing like 2 or 3 videos a week, but I found there were so many things I wanted to talk about, and I enjoy having a set routine to my schedule as well, which again is something that Michael has that I borrowed from him. So he was doing, for example, the Sunday Penguin. So I have certain days when I do certain types of videos. So on a Tuesday you're going to get a tag video from me. On a Thursday you're going to get a review video from me, and so on. And I find that I have found that really useful in terms of building the channel, and it just makes it easier for me to plan my videos and to make videos as well, because I know what kind of videos I need to be producing. So that's kind of Michael's influence. Kelsey's influence has been more, I think, about style. So Kelsey runs the channel Slime and Slashers. So again, I guess being willing to just talk about the things that interest me. So feeling empowered to do that. To talk about books I love, rather than trying to talk about books that I think people want to hear about, if that makes sense. That's definitely something Kelsey does, and just her enthusiasm really shines through in her videos. But also having a particular style in terms of like having like an intro video for the channel, and always having that in every video. So, in all of my videos, so if you look at Kelsey's videos, Kelsey starts with a little intro where she has a standard thing that she says, like I do, and she has she then introduces what she's going to be talking about, and then she has a little intro clip, and then she moves into the body of the video. And I've shamelessly completely borrowed that style because I think it works really well, and I think it makes you feel welcome as a viewer, because as soon as you start watching that video, you feel like you get what the creator's doing. There's that familiarity is very comforting. So that's why I have shamelessly borrowed from both Kelsey and Michael. And if you don't follow their channels, you really should, because they've both got fantastic channels. Okay, question 8. What are some pressures you feel on your reading life because of your channel? And really that's just about reading certain things. So making sure I've got videos that I'm reading books that I can talk about in reviews. And it's really just the reviews. It's not so much any of the other types of video I do, but wanting to put up reviews that I think are about books that people are likely to like. And I've built up quite a good understanding of what the viewers of my channel like, and often that's happily that's the same sort of books I like, which I guess is why you watch me. I do try to read at least one book a week that I know I can do a review about, and also it's made me think about my grounding, if you like, in the genres that I speak about. And that's one of the reasons I'm doing this 50 books to read before I'm 50 thing, is to make sure I'm better versed than I am already in the crime and horror genres, and reading some of the the really important books in those genres, and some current authors in those genres as well. So those are the ways really that having a channel has influenced my reading life. Question 9, in what way, if any, do you feel the social element of the community has influenced your reading? So it definitely has. And it's really been around like group reads and buddy reads. And it's ended up with me reading books I probably wouldn't have read otherwise, because I wanted to get involved in that community aspect of things. And that's been fantastic. I think it's always good to try different things. There are always books that we as readers will tend to gravitate towards. But I think finding ways to challenge yourself to read different things as well is always positive, and buddy reads and group reads can be a really good way of doing that. And they can also be a good way of helping you get through a book you might struggle with otherwise, because you can chat with the other people taking part in the read about it. So I would really recommend to people that you get involved in those things. I think they're a really important part of the community, but also just a really fun part of the community. The final question then is, what impact do you hope your own channel will have on the BookTube community on aspiring booktubers? So I think, in terms of the community, I think the thing my channel has always been about is not being afraid to talk about books that people look down on, and championing trashy books. That's what Garb August was all about. But if you look, my very first video was a review of the first book in the Edge series by George G. Gilman, which is a really trashy, exploitative 1970s Western. And really that has been the theme of my channel. I talk about all sorts of different books on the channel, but I hope that what comes across is just a love of reading and a passion for books, books of all sorts, and the kind of ethos that you should never be ashamed about the book you're reading. You should never let anybody embarrass you or look down on you because you're reading a certain book and not reading a classic, or the latest Booker winner or whatever. That for me is hugely important. I think we as readers should all support each other and should look at the things that unite us, the things that we have in common, rather than the things that divide us. And taste in genre and things like that can be divisive things, and they shouldn't be. What's important is that we all love reading. And in terms of influence on aspiring booktubers, I think it's that if I can do it, anyone can do it. And all I've done with the channel, so as I've said before, I started the channel to win a bet with my son to see who could get to 100 subscribers first. I never imagined I would win that bet. But what I've found is that by sitting here in front of my phone and talking to my phone and just talking, letting my enthusiasm for books come out, and not worrying too much about what people are going to think and things like that, I think that has, that has worked. So if I can do it as a massive introvert who'd never done anything like this before, and the channel has become reasonably successful, if I can do it, you can do it. So if you're thinking about starting a channel, that first step is the most difficult one, and that is making a video and uploading it. Just do that and see what happens. My first video is terrible compared to, and you may still think my videos are terrible, but certainly, if I look back at that video, it's very different in style. But yeah, just try it and see. Watch other people's videos. Be prepared to learn from them. Be prepared to, don't feel guilty about borrowing, as I've done. I've been really open in this video about the fact that I've borrowed a lot of what has made the channel successful from other people, because I enjoyed watching their videos, and I think what they were doing worked. So I've woven parts of that into my own style. So do that. Watch other people's videos. Upload your own videos. Ask people for feedback. Get involved in the community. If you do all of those things, your channel will grow. There's nothing I've done with this channel that's revolutionary. But what I have done is I've made sure I've studied other people's videos to see what works, and I've been disciplined about it. So you do have to be quite disciplined, and you do have to not not let it get you down when you lose subscribers or whatever. I lose subscribers every day. So don't let that get you down. Just keep plugging away at it. Keep trying. Be disciplined. Keep making videos, and your channel will grow. That will be my advice. Okay, so that's all 10 questions gone through. So I'm going to tag some people now. These are actually 3 of my favourite channels on BookTube. These are channels who I pretty much always watch their content. So if you're not subscribed to these channels, I do really recommend them. So they are Andrew from It Came From The Page, who is a lover of like horror fiction and kind of trashier horror fiction movie novelisations and things like that in particular, but also a really big movie fan and talks about movies a lot. Sin from Sin's Book Nook, who is primarily a horror reviewer, does like 1 or 2 review videos every week, and they're always about interesting books, and they're always interesting videos to watch as well. She always has an interesting take on the book she talks about. And Anne from Anne Novella. So Anne is a European booktuber who reads really widely and reads the kinds of books that I just would never have heard of otherwise. So her channel is always really interesting to watch, to pick up recommendations about books that I just would never have crossed my path otherwise. So 3 really great channels. I don't think any of you have done this tag, so we'll be really interested to see what you do with it. Okay, time for a random book from the shelves. Today's is yet again one that I haven't read, which is I'm the King of the Castle by Susan Hill. So Hill, obviously best known for The Woman in Black, which is a fantastic ghost story. This is, I think, more of a kind of psychological horror story, and a bit of a coming of age story as well, I believe. So yeah, it's one I definitely want to read, but just haven't managed to yet. So I hope you found that interesting. Do let me know in the comments what influence booktubers had on your reading life. And as always, thanks very much for watching. Hope you're safe and well out there. Hope you're reading good stuff, and I'll speak to you again very soon. Cheerio.